Aita for cutting off my family after they revealed my fiancé fathered my sister's baby? Everything was perfect. Or at least I thought it was. My fiancé and I had been together for 5 years. And after 2 years of engagement, we were ready to take the next step. Our wedding was only a week away. We were finalizing the last few details. And while the usual pre-wedding stress had set in, I was genuinely excited. I had dreamed of this day for as long as I could remember. I'm the older of 2 sisters, and my mom had always joked that I'd be the first to get married, because I was always the organized one. And honestly, I thought that would be true. My fiancé was everything I could have asked for, charming, attentive, and deeply in love with me. My family adored him too, especially my younger sister, Clara. Despite our differences, Clara being more extroverted and charismatic, while I'm quieter and more of a rule follower, we always had a close relationship. She even saw my fiancé as an older brother. How could I have ever imagined what was about to unfold? It all started last weekend when my mother asked me to come over to her house. This wasn't unusual. We often had Sunday lunches together, but this time felt different. Something was off. My dad, Clara, and my fiancé were already there, and the atmosphere was oddly tense. No one smiled. My mom avoided eye contact, and Clara, who was normally chatty, was eerily quiet. When I sat down, my mom sighed deeply, as if preparing to drop a bombshell. She told me that what she was about to say was for my own good, that I needed to be strong and understand that sometimes things just don't turn out the way you expect. My first thought was that someone in the family had fallen ill, or there was some financial issue with the wedding, but I was nowhere near prepared for what came next. With a chilling calmness, she told me, "Clara is pregnant, and the baby is your fiancé's." At first, I thought it was a joke. I even laughed nervously, hoping it was some cruel prank. But Clara didn't laugh. She started to cry. My fiancé remained silent, his eyes focused on the floor, not daring to meet mine. And my mother? Well, it was like she was on a scripted reality show. She continued, "We think it's best you cancel the wedding. The baby needs a stable family, and Clara and your fiancé have decided to be together. You have to understand this is what's best for everyone." I felt as though the world had stopped. My heart raced so hard, I thought I might faint. All I could manage to say was, "How can you ask me this?" My mom looked at me as if I were the selfish one, replying, "Because it's for the best. We don't want you involved in our lives anymore if you can't support them." And with that, the conversation was over. There was no room for discussion, no explanation, just cold indifference. My father barely lifted his head, and Clara, well, she wouldn't even look at me. I walked out numb. The rest of the day is a blur. I don't remember much, except that when I got home, I threw my engagement ring on the floor and collapsed on the couch, crying uncontrollably. Since then, I haven't spoken to anyone in my family. My mom sent a couple of messages, urging me to move past it. I didn't have the strength to reply. I felt like everything I knew, my fiancé, my sister, my family, had been taken from me in an instant. Update. After posting my story, I made the decision to leave my city for a few days. A close friend offered me a place to stay, and without thinking, I packed a bag and left. I needed to get away from everything, my apartment, the memories, and especially the endless messages from my family. That week away was an emotional whirlwind. I felt broken, confused, and above all betrayed. During my time away, I didn't answer my family's calls or messages. They kept coming, but they weren't messages of concern. They weren't checking on me, asking how I was coping. They were trying to reason with me, like I was a spoiled child who didn't understand what was at stake. "Clara is nervous about the pregnancy. You could be more understanding. Your sister needs your support more than ever. We all make mistakes. Family should stick together." Family? How ironic. When in this entire situation did my family ever consider me as anything more than an obstacle to their version of happiness? When I returned to my apartment after that week away, the first thing I noticed was that someone had been there. I thought I was imagining it at first, but when I checked more thoroughly, it became clear. My sister had a spare key. She'd come to my place and taken my wedding things, photo frames of me and my fiancé, ornaments he had given me, even a book that belonged to him. It felt like someone had come in to erase him from my life. I called my landlady, and she confirmed that Clara had been there, taking things without my permission. Apparently, I had given her permission. Of course I hadn't. Then I found something that shattered me even more. A box of wedding invitations. Clara had crossed out my name and written her name instead, as if they were planning their wedding, not mine. After all the effort I put into organizing everything, who does something like that? That was when I knew there was no going back. I couldn't keep trying to justify how they had treated me. The next day, I changed the locks on my apartment and cut off all contact with them. I blocked their numbers, social media accounts, everything. I also called my friend, the one who had taken me in. She was horrified when I told her everything. And when she said, "They are not your family. A family doesn't do this to you," it hit me like a ton of bricks. I don't know if it was her words or if it was just time, but I finally allowed myself to truly break down. Up until then, I had been holding it all together, but that night, I let it all out. And while it was painful, it was also somehow liberating. I've since learned from a mutual friend that this wasn't some accidental affair. My fiancé and my sister had been secretly seeing each other for months. According to rumors, Clara had planned to get pregnant to ensure my fiancé would leave me for her. And worst of all, my family probably knew about all of this for a long time, covering for them, supporting them. This wasn't a mistake. It was a planned betrayal. And now, I realize my family had already decided I was dispensable. My worth to them had always been based on convenience. I don't know what the future holds. I've contacted a therapist because I know I can't carry this burden on my own. I'm also considering moving to another city, starting fresh, and leaving this betrayal behind me. Right now I feel broken, but in some strange way, I also feel free. Update 1. A new beginning. In the aftermath of everything that happened, a small spark of strength has started to grow inside me. A strength I can no longer ignore. Losing them all, my fiancé and my family, somehow gave me something I didn't expect. The chance to choose who I want in my life. For the first time in weeks, I feel like I'm taking control again, reclaiming my power. Taking the advice to close that chapter seriously, I changed the locks on my apartment. I began working on myself, seeing a therapist to help me process the hurt. It's still hard to talk about everything without a lump in my throat. But now, I can face what happened without completely breaking down. One day at a time. As for Clara and my ex-fiancé, it seems things aren't going quite as they expected. Word has gotten around through acquaintances, and though I never asked for details, people were eager to share. Apparently, Clara and my ex are living together in a small apartment, but their life is far from perfect. Clara has stopped working to focus on her pregnancy, and my ex is bearing the full financial burden. To make things worse, they're constantly fighting about money. I won't lie. Part of me feels a dark satisfaction at their struggles. It's hard not to when I think about what they did to me, and how they expected everything to be fine once they got what they wanted. Ironically, it seems my family isn't as content with their decision as they thought they'd be. My mother has tried to contact me repeatedly, but her messages always begin with, "I know we made mistakes," or "We don't want this to be permanent. We need our family together." I can't help but wonder if they're finally regretting the chaos they created. But no, I'm not the solution to their problems. A couple of days ago, a cousin who's always remained neutral in family disputes called me with some unsettling news. Clara had been posting about me on social media, trying to paint me as the villain of this story. According to her, I'm cold, selfish, and unable to accept a human mistake. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the audacity of it. How does someone who betrayed me turn themselves into the victim so easily? But the most surprising part was learning that my ex is also feeling the weight of his actions. A mutual friend told me he confessed to missing the way things were before everything exploded. After all that's happened, it turns out he's not just a traitor. He's also a coward, avoiding the consequences of his choices. I have no sympathy for him. Meanwhile, I've been focused on rebuilding my life. A few days ago, I made an important decision. I'm moving. It's something I've always wanted to do, and now that I'm free of the ties that once bound me, it feels like the right time. I've already started searching for a job in a new city, and although the thought of starting over from scratch is daunting, it excites me. I know the path to peace won't be quick, but I finally feel like I'm moving forward. I'm learning to let go of the resentment, even if it's not always easy. There are still nights when I wake up, haunted by what I lost. But on those nights, I remind myself that what I really lost wasn't something that was good for me, though it took time for me to realize that. Update 2, The Path to Peace. It's been 3 months since I last updated here, and honestly, I hadn't planned on writing again. But something inside me tells me this story deserves closure, not just for those who've supported me, but for myself. This will be the final time I speak about this. A lot has changed since my last post. As I mentioned before, I decided to move. And I did. I'm writing this from my small, cozy apartment in a completely new city. The move was harder than I expected, not physically but emotionally. Leaving everything behind, even the good parts of my old life, was painful. But it was necessary. It was the only way I could reclaim what I felt I had lost. My identity, my sense of self, without the weight of betrayal from my family and my ex-fiancé. Starting over has been a strange experience. At first, I felt like a stranger in my own life, unsure of who I was or what I wanted to do. But slowly, things have started to fall into place. I've found a job I truly love. I've made new friends. And little by little, I've rebuilt my routine. I even started dating someone, though very casually. No pressure. No expectations. For the first time in a long time, I feel light. Like the heavy weight of my past is no longer crushing me. As for my family and my ex-fiancé, things aren't looking as rosy for them as they'd hoped. Clara gave birth to the baby a couple of weeks ago. An aunt sent me pictures of the baby, accompanied by a message saying, "It's sad that you're not here to meet him." I didn't respond. I didn't feel anything when I saw those pictures. Not sadness, not anger, not even nostalgia. It was indifference. I think that was the most surprising part. How little it affected me. From what I've heard, Clara and my ex are no longer together. The tension between them apparently worsened after the baby was born, and he left. Now he's staying with a friend, trying to rebuild his life. Honestly, I don't care what he does. As for Clara, she's living with my parents, who are now dealing with the consequences of their decisions. The baby was supposed to be the start of something beautiful for them, but the reality has turned out to be much more complicated. My mother tried to reach out to me again. This time her message felt different. Instead of blaming me or trying to manipulate me, she said she was wrong and that she missed her daughter. Perhaps at another time in my life, that message would have meant something to me. But now it doesn't. I no longer feel the need to please her or gain her approval. That's another chain I've broken. It's strange how time changes everything. Months ago, this betrayal consumed me. It defined my thoughts, my emotions, my life. Now it doesn't. There are still days when I think about what happened, but it no longer hurts in the same way. It's like a scar, a part of me, but not one that burns anymore. It no longer defines who I am. If I've learned anything through all of this, it's that peace doesn't come from waiting for others to change or apologize. Peace comes from letting go, even when it seems impossible. I can't change what they did, but I can choose how I respond to it. And I've chosen to move on. To all those who have supported me throughout this journey, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your messages, your advice, your encouragement, it meant the world to me during my darkest moments. If you're reading this and going through something similar, I want you to know that even though everything may seem impossible now, there will come a time when you will stop feeling trapped. It doesn't happen overnight, but it will come. And when it does, I promise you will feel like you can breathe again. Today I can say I'm okay. Not perfect, not completely healed, but okay. And after everything I've been through, that's more than enough. Thank you for reading, and I hope this brings closure to my story. See you in the next one.